My name is Vanessa Hayes. Welcome to my studio. Today we're painting a seascape inspired by my last trip to the Florida Gulf Coast. The sky was crystal clear and the sun beaming on the water. It sparkled like millions of diamonds on the water's surface. We will be using a couple of techniques to achieve this result. I've taped off the edges for a nice clean border to the finished painting. I also drew my horizon line and a rough sketch of the shoreline, as well as a breaking wave in the foreground. I've cut a circle out of blue painter's tape and put it in the sky to leave the bright white circle for the sun. You could also use masking fluid, just make sure it's completely dry before starting your painting. By using the tape, I can paint immediately. With my squirrel mop, I'm wetting the sky area down to the horizon line. And putting in the French ultramarine blue in the corners. And then now adding some cerulean blue. I'm working this around and trying to keep the area around the blue tape light. And the paint gets lighter as we approach the horizon line. Using my number 14 Neptune brush, I'm working around the sun to soften the color intensity. In case the ring around the sun looks a little pink, that's because my brush still had a little bit of Quin Rose on it. Oops. Now using my 3/4 inch flat brush, I'm working out from the sun and I'm lifting off to create rays radiating towards the water. The brush is only slightly damp. I'm rinsing out my brush and drying it off on a paper towel to avoid any cauliflowers. Now let's dry the sky area. I'm starting with a light value of cerulean blue. I'm painting at the horizon line, working towards the center on both sides. I'm leaving the center under the sunlight. I'm using the dry brush technique to skim across the paper, leaving white for some sparkle. The rough texture paper is ideal for this dry brush technique. Working my way to the foreground with the cerulean blue, and I'm avoiding the breaking wave. Next, I'm adding Phthalo turquoise, starting on the horizon line, and again using the dry brush technique to leave white paper and broken lines. I'm still keeping the darkest parts on the sides to draw the eye towards the sparkling water in the center. I'm using an uneven broken stroke around the breaking wave to leave an uneven line, and I'm dragging the front of the wave where the water meets the sand. I'm trying to add a little more texture to the sunlit area in the center of the water. I don't want too much white. And adding a little more detail in the foreground, sweeping some color forward, following the movement of the water. One way to increase the drama is with a light and dark contrast. So I'm adding dark values here and there. I'm dotting in a very light value of cerulean blue at the top and at the bottom of the wave to create some shadows. Then I'm painting some movement in the water in an arching motion for the crashing wave. Now I'm working on the waterline, adding some color and texture. I'm leaving plenty of white paper for the seafoam. I'm adding some cerulean blue and phthalo turquoise under the edge of the wave for the shadow and contrast. Again, this helps to accentuate the white in the wave. I'm dragging some of the color to the shoreline. Blues are my favorite colors on my palette, and I use them most frequently. I use multiple shades of blue in my seascape paintings. I'm dropping in Veridian and Cobalt Turquoise, blending and dragging this on the shore. And I'm strengthening up my darker values with the phthalo turquoise. The majority of the details in this painting are in this wave. And this color I'm adding here is the Phthalo Blue green shade. I'm adding some water to the breaking wave in places to soften the hard edges. Then I'll blot with a paper towel. I want a combination of hard and soft edges on this wave. Now I'm wetting the sand area, but I'll leave space for the sea foam. I'm painting the sand in with buff titanium. And I'm adding a bit of indigo for some shadows in the sand. I'm blending this out. Just adding a few more streaks into the underside of the wave and bringing it forward to break up some of the white. Now let's remove the tape for the sun. The line is a bit harsh, so I'm wetting the edge and blotting to soften. Now let's dry the painting. Using the number 6 chisel blender, I'm dropping in some Payne's gray at the edge of the white and randomly in the seafoam area for shadow in depth and contrast. Notice how that little bit of Payne's gray really makes that white seafoam pop. I'm dotting in a light value of Payne's gray in the edge of this breaking wave. It adds some dimension and movement to the wave. Now I'm just softening the edges of the shadow at the waterline. I'm dragging down to create a little reflection in the wet sand. Your painting must be completely dry before we start the next step. Now for the magic. I'm using a craft knife blade to scrape the surface here and there. This will reveal tiny specks of white paper, which is creating the shimmer on the water. I'm also scraping a little on the top and on the bottom of spots on the wave to create a splash. You could not possibly get these results by any other means. And for the finishing touch, I'm using a white pastel pencil to soften some of the edges on the top and on the bottom of the wave. It's not completely opaque, but it gives a nice misty look to the sea spray. Now let's remove the tape and have a look. The paint bled a little under the tape. This seems to happen more often when using textured paper. We can fix that easily with a little water and a magic eraser. Just dampen the sponge with a little bit of water, and then rub gently and wipe with a paper towel. You may have to go over a couple of times to remove it. And the spots are gone. I've let the painting dry, and now I'll sign my painting. I hope you enjoyed this painting and will give it a try. If you have some comments or questions, please drop them in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notifications when the next video is posted. Thank you for spending time with me, and we'll see you next time.